Despite its lack of sun, the Wildernite is alive with light. Stars that are rarely visible in Nim shine. Plant life glows, casting neon hues that contrast the gloom. In some ways, as you approach Nim, the Wildernite seems to fade. The plants grow fainter, and as the twilight of the sun shards fills the sky, that vibrant contrast gives way to a more dreary monotone. Titch and Drift pick their way down the mountains, checking constantly for signs of shadows and the promise of shelter, jumping at any slight noise. Titch's heart is heavy with the weight of a book. Viason's on Shadows and Stars, an ill-gotten gain and the betrayal of the trust placed in them by Elmsroot and Lavera. But as well as dwelling on the book, Titch can't seem to shake the Shadow's nightmare of being trapped in the weave from their mind. They shudder and carry on. Now, we have a bit of paperwork to do before we go any further, because I believe the fight with the Shadow took us up to 10 XP, although the way I edited it last episode and probably made it seem like the flashback got us to 10. Either way though, what we do here is clear the track and give ourselves a point of renown that we can spend on advancements later. But we also get one advancement immediately by drawing a card. The Eight of Clubs, that's a +1 to our max endurance. Alright, I don't think that's what I would have picked given the choice, but it'll do. Next, I want to get back to Cloudlight, and we could just time skip there, but it's an opportunity to develop our version of the Wildernite. So what I'll do is say we're a day's travel from Nim, and before you ask, yes, technically there are days in this world. The sun shards get dimmed with a shade during nighttime. So we can use the travel rules to reveal a little bit about this area of the Eastern Wildernite. So first, we draw 3 cards to generate a point of interest. Ace of Hearts, 3 of Clubs, and 4 of Diamonds. That's Forbidden Grassland Temple. Ooh. And the risk rating, King of Spades. Oh, that's a 3. So I guess we know why the temple is forbidden. And shadow activity is Jack of Clubs, heavy. That makes sense. So maybe people generally don't come this way because there's an old temple of tomb infested with shadows. Or should it be a temple of Valgus? I think either works. So let's ask the Oracle. Is this temple dedicated to tomb? 4 of Clubs is a no but. Alright, so maybe it wasn't dedicated to a single deity, but both. It's big, very big, more of a cathedral, visible from miles around. The mountainous terrain gives way to grassy plain, with sparse tufts eking out an existence in this twilight border zone. Titch stops and glances around nervously as a tall monolithic spire appears on the horizon, the Umbral Cathedral. Once, presumably, it had a different name, but now it belongs only to shadows. As far as they know, no one has been inside the place since the sun shone in the sky. I think we'd best rest before heading further west. Ah! Drift chirps and immediately flops to the ground. Somewhere more hidden, maybe, Titch says. Drift reluctantly gets up and stretches. I know. Titch looks for a spot to make camp, button eyes peeled for shadows, anxiety rising within their chest. The encounter at the library still fresh in their memory, but even so, still scanning for useful ingredients. So Titch has the ability Familiar with Fray, which gives us a +2 bonus to finding safe resting spots. But first, let's make a check to search for ingredients. This is likely going to be difficult. But let's draw for the difficulty rating. 2 of hearts. Okay, good start. That's a base of 5. But we do need to draw 3 for the risk rating. A 3 of hearts, 8 of clubs, and ace of spades. So that's a total difficulty rating of 7. We have a d6 willpower, and I think I'll have to step down the impact die to a d4 because we still have the afraid condition and we're in view of a huge nest of shadows which won't help. Ah, that's 5. Oh well, we get a card at least. However, now we did draw 2 black cards during that check, which I think means another shadow encounter. And here I was looking forward to that +2. Maybe we shouldn't have stopped for ingredients. Titch spots a knoll with a rocky overhang that might protect them from both the wind and line of sight with the tower in the distance. They trudge wearily towards it, sighing as the threadbare landscape offers nothing in terms of ingredients. Before they get there, though, Titch is stopped in their tracks as Drift slides in front, hunched and rigid. Drift tends to growl at strangers. This behaviour is different, though. A warning that Titch has relied on in the past and trusts fully. They freeze in place, listening. After a few seconds, Titch's heart stops as they hear a soft clicking from the darkness of the overhang. Steadying themselves, they carefully back away. No rest for the wicked, somewhat literally in this case. So let's set up a check to sneak away. Difficulty rating 10 of hearts, that's great. So that's a base of 5. Risk rating ace of diamonds, 10 of spades, and queen of hearts. Perfect. That's a total difficulty rating of 6. This will be a dexterity check, and I'm going to step up the impact die to a d8 because we're essentially using our bonded familiar ability to warn of danger. That's a 2 and a 4. A little close for comfort there. We'll gain an XP though, and evade this encounter. And I'm going to say that means Titch and Drift will decide against resting and head straight to Nim, skirting around the temple. I'm just going to assume with our familiar with Frey ability we can avoid any more confrontations, but at the cost of an exhausted condition. Weary and ragged, Titch and Drift stumble into the sprawling university campus that makes up much of southern Cloudlight, passing the bookshops and tea houses of the Lantern District without a glance. Off to the right, the spire of luminous knowledge blazes reassuringly, its sunshard hanging overhead like the star above the loom tree. The eventide shade dims the shard to a soft red, and the jovial voices of university students fill the air as they blow off steam for the evening. Now, very quickly, I want to ask the Oracle, do we get to rest yet? 5 of clubs says no but. Okay, I'm going to interpret that as we will get to rest, but something needs to happen first. So what? Let's draw a mentor prompt. 4 of hearts, create an NPC. Oh, that is perfect. The witch's wing is quiet when they arrive, and Titch leaves a message for Madame Glass before stalking to the dorms. Hey Titch. The voice is not a welcoming one, and makes Titch self-conscious whenever they hear it. It belongs to Syris LaGarde, a Nimian student and novice of the School of Finesse, just like Titch. She leans against the wall next to Titch's door, inspecting the large yellow heartreach fruit in her fist. Heard he might be back. What do you want? Oh, come on, Titch, don't be like that. Syris rubs the fruit on her long silvery coat, adorned with fine embroidery, then takes a bite. I'm just happy you survived your little library trip. She swallows. You seen Glass yet? Titch says nothing. I guess not. She takes another bite. Oh, by the way, I fixed the lock on your trunk. It must have been broken. Titch glares at Syris, but doesn't have the energy to respond. So what did you get? Anything good? Like, a book, maybe? Syris nods to Titch's satchel, and the tattling clutches it tighter. What's it about? Wait, don't tell me. Don't want spoilers. Titch feels a swell of anxiety. What does she know about the book, and why is she so interested? Titch forces himself to keep looking up at Syris, whose pristine dark hair frames her round face, ending near the last light blessing pendant that she always wears. Syris frowns at the remains of the Heartreach fruit. You want the rest of this? No? She tosses it into a nearby bin. What unsong is going on? Can't you just leave us be? Just one evening free. We've not slept in so long. Syris laughs. I love that thing you do when you're anxious. It's very cute. But I agree, you look utterly threadbare. Go rest. I'm not stopping you. She puts her hands into her coat pockets, but stays leaning against the wall. Titch sighs and stalks past into their cramped little novice's room. They lock the door as Drift jumps onto the bed, turns in a single circle and collapses. Titch follows immediately, stopping only to take Fireson's On Shadows and Stars from their satchel and slip it under the threads of their clothes. So finally, we can rest. There's a couple of things we can do mechanically when resting. First, we choose between recovering endurance, repairing an item or protection, or clearing a condition. And I think it makes sense to clear that exhausted condition. I'm going to give myself a card for that fun rhyme as well, and one reason I want to do that is that technically when we rest we can burn a card to alter our jam, which I guess could happen in the morning rather than when we're asleep. So we can either swap out an ingredient or add one to combine effects. Let's see what we've got. We have Dusk Mint, which reduces a mental condition by 1 slot. Crest Crown, gain visions about a specific place or event. And Wicket Reed, produce a small basket of gifts or attract a helpful spirit. So, to combine them, you basically just play around with the wording, swapping words from one to another until you have something you like. And I think I'll go with this for now. Attract a helpful spirit that reduces a mental condition. So I'll burn the 9 of clubs to add Dusk Mint to the jar. Titch's sleep is plagued by nightmares. The feeling of being trapped in the weave, hearing Drift cry out in pain, the clicking growl of the shadows. They jolt awake, heart hammering, and feel for shadows and stars. It's still there. Surely Syris wasn't going to sneak in and steal it from under them. But something is going on. Something weird. Drift stays on the bed as Titch rises, clearly pretending to be asleep. They take a deep breath. Dusk Mint, that'll do the trick. After mixing some Dusk Mint into the jam, they take a spoonful, feeling the magic spread through them like a soothing tea. There's a light popping sound, and a bat-like creature with wide, googly eyes appears, hovering in the air in front of Titch. They chuckle at the unthreatening spirit, and Drift opens one eye to see what's going on. Hi there. That's quite a stare. I've got a small request. Could you just pop outside the door and see if Syris is there anymore? She's tall, grey coat and dark hair. There's another pop, followed by a few seconds of silence before the spirit reappears. Let's ask the Oracle then if Syris is still outside Titch's dorm. I think it's unlikely, and Titch certainly doesn't want her to still be there, so I'll phrase the question like this. Has Syris gone? 7 of diamonds is a yes, but. Okay, I imagine the but is a bit much for this googly bat to communicate, but let's figure out what that's about with a complication card. 8 of clubs is malfunction. Interesting. Okay, let's clear the afraid condition and see what that's about. The spirit lazily lists from side to side in a way that Titch takes to mean a no, before popping out of existence again. Oh, thank you, Titch says into the empty space, then turns to Drift, who more or less has both eyes open now. Do you think I offended them with that stare comment? Oh, well, we need to get to Madame Glass and find out what's going on. Titch turns the key in the door and pulls. Nothing happens. Usually, the door would open in this situation, but it seems to be failing in its primary purpose. Drift cocks his head quizzically. I'm trying, okay? Titch pulls harder. Still, the door doesn't budge. What is going on? Wait. Suddenly, it made sense why Syris was waiting here last night. Not to stop them getting in, but to keep them there. Titch sighs. Syris had been a friend once. They'd been students together, studying basic witchery. Something had changed, though, when they'd been selected by the School of Finesse. Titch closes their eyes and reaches for the threads that bind the lock, feeling their way along them, searching for any out of place. Something had stayed the same, though. Syris had always been surprised whenever the little tattling had gained the admiration of their tutors, whenever Titch had solved a problem before Syris. A bundle of twisted threads marks where the mechanism had been jammed, and Titch manipulates them, untangles them. For some reason, Syris had always underestimated Titch's abilities. The door swings open. Ta-da! Titch says to Drift. There's another click and the bolt jams back into the locked position, making the door impossible to close again. Huh. Oh well, it's open now at least. Let's go find Glass. So that was our use of Mend the Forgotten for the session, which says we can magically repair an item, but only just long enough to use. Next then, to Madame Glass's office. But there's definitely something sinister afoot around this place, and I've also got that inciting incident in the back of my head that we banked back in session 0. So I've got vague ideas that Madame Glass might not be immediately available, but I'm not actually sure where this is heading. So let's draw a mentor prompt. 8 of Hearts says introduce a rival. Well, we kind of already did that, but why not do it again, but bigger? The School of Finesse occupies a quiet and subtle corner of the Witch's Wing. It's easy to miss, perhaps intentionally. To get there from the dorms, you need to head towards the Sunlight Studies department, then turn left up a narrow wooden staircase between 2 lecture theatres. The corridor to Madame Glass's office is lined with wood panels. There's nothing flashy about the place, no magical gimmicks, except 2 mirrors that face each other on either side of the corridor. It was widely understood that these form some kind of security device, but how they work is a mystery to all the novices. Just as Titch turns into the faculty corridor, they hear hushed voices. And the tattling? Out of the way, just like you asked. Good. Damned nuisance they got back earlier than expected. A door closes and the voices fade. That was Syris and her tutor, Magister Andelheim. All thoughts of delivering the book are temporarily forgotten as Titch frantically tries to figure out how to hear the rest of that conversation. So for this, I'm going to set a challenge. I'm thinking that a magic school dedicated to secrets and espionage has various protections against eavesdropping, so we can't just listen at the door. That's too easy. I don't want to spend ages on it though, so I'll call it a resolve of 3 and draw for the difficulty. Ace of hearts, so that's 5. I think that makes sense. So the doors might be magically protected, but what about the windows? Let's ask the Oracle. Can you listen at the windows? King of Diamonds is a critical yes. Okay, so perhaps Titch knows that there's a weak spot in the department's security, and let's draw an advantage to go along with it. 2 of spades, fresh trail. Tracks lead closer to a goal or away from danger. Titch's mind races. Glass once told them that there's an invisible sphere surrounding the department that only allows in people who've been invited. But if you're inside the department, past the mirrors, then you're already inside that sphere of protection. The only people who can spy from the windows are members of the department. And Titch just so happens to be a member. Okay, stay out of sight and wait for me, Drift. I'm gonna do something stupid. The Tattling ducks into a nearby stationery cupboard with a small window. They stack some books into a makeshift stepladder and open the window latch, peering outside. The spire of luminous knowledge is nearly blinding from this position, but shielding their eyes, Titch sees Andelheim's office window. The good news is, it's ajar. The bad news, both windows sit above a sheer vertical drop to the city streets far below, their openings too small for most people to climb through. But more good news, Titch is not most people. With the help of the book stack, Titch squeezes through the window and onto the roof. Okay, first check of this challenge is going to be a dexterity check. Just a straight d6 impact. Alright, that's 14, so 2 successes and an XP. Titch clings onto the tiles and moves carefully, quietly along the roof, wind rushing around them, eyes firmly avoiding the drop over the edge. Finally, Titch grabs onto the brickwork around Andelheim's office and listens. Willpower check with a d6 impact this time. Oh, double sixes for a 12. That's actually 2 successes, but we only needed 1. So let's draw an advantage to go with it. 5 of spades is a shooting star is noticed falling nearby. Weird how the last time we clambered around an edge, the exact same thing happened. What I'll say then is that it's not literally a shooting star, but the sun shard is bright enough here that people don't tend to look directly out of their windows, and Titch can sneak a peek at what's going on inside. Titch gasps as they risk a look through the cracked window. Apart from Syris and Andelheim, there are at least 4 people in the small space. 2 in pale guard uniform, 1 unfamiliar, and 1 instantly recognisable as the elderly Boris Krenash, president of the Cloudlight University. The fact remains, says Andelheim, that she was privy to extremely sensitive information this whole time. It's more than simple fraud, Boris. We have ample evidence of activities that would undermine not just the security of Cloudlight, but the whole of NIM. Very well, Magister, you have my blessing on this, but do it discreetly and respectfully. She deserves a fair trial. Certainly. I've ensured she will have no contact with students this morning, and there should be no audience here in Finesse. The unfamiliar man speaks up. Excellent. Then we'll proceed with the arrest. Guards, here is the warrant for the person currently known as Madame Glass. Titch staggers back as they hear the words, forgetting the deadly drop to their left. Frantically, they scan the rooftop for Glass's office. Okay, another check here to see if we can get to Glass's office before the guards. Difficulty 9 of hearts, which is 5. Good. And a dexterity roll, 16. That's 2 rolls in a row now we've got the maximum on. So we get an XP and let's draw an advantage. 4 of spades. Shortcut. An unexpected path reduces travel time or bypasses an obstacle. That is good. So we'll say not only do we arrive before the guards, but we have time to do some stuff there too. Titch scrambles up over the roof, not worrying about making a noise this time, sliding dangerously down the other side. They grab onto the brickwork and rap repeatedly on Glass's window. It only takes a few seconds for the window to swing open, revealing a bemused-looking Glass. Novice Titch? Usually students knock at the door. Do you have my book? Professor, Titch says breathlessly, they're coming to arrest you. Never mind that, novice. Do you have the book? Viason's on... Well, yes, Titch pats the satchel. But... Good. Now, listen carefully. Here's what I want you to do. Take this. She reaches back to her desk, almost casually, in a way she's done dozens of times before, and hands Titch a different book. Stay out of sight and listen to what they have to say. Then... go back to your dorm, play along with whatever they want you to do, and if they ask for the book, give them this one. Understand? Titch nods wordlessly before a sharp knock startles them nearly off the roof. Good. When you feel it is safe to do so, and you're not being followed, take the original book to Lyra Tinwhistle. There's another sharp knock at the door. But where? You already have all the information you need, novice. I know you can handle it. Without another word, she turns and calls, Enter? Titch ducks out of sight as a small party enters the office. Good morning, Boris, Carnabas, Andelheim, Novice LaGarde, and I'm afraid I don't recognize your companions. I'd offer you a seat, but I don't seem to have enough. I'm afraid we're not here on a social call, Glass, the unfamiliar man, presumably Carnabas, says. Oh, I see that. We have reason to suspect you gained your position within the Coven and the University using a false identity. I've therefore authorized your detention for the purpose of gathering evidence relating to breaches of the security of Cloudlight and Nim. Glass chuckles. I assumed it was common knowledge that Glass was not my first name. If you plan to arrest everyone whose names have changed over the course of their life, you might be in for a long task. I assume that's not all. There's an uncomfortable cough from someone in the office. I certainly hope that's all this is, Glass, the elderly president says. But that's an argument you'll have to take up with a magistrate. These folks are only here to serve your warrant, as discreetly and respectfully as possible. I've given you that dignity at least. You'll only be suspended, pending the results of the investigation, and I hope to welcome you back in due course. Of course, Boris. Discretion is, after all, what we teach here at Finesse. I assume that's the lesson currently being taught to Novice LaGarde here. Enough with the word games, Glass, Carnabas says. I can put whatever name you like on the warrant, but you will be coming with the guards. Then please do amend it, and I'll happily come along peacefully. I feel I should advise you against giving any unnecessary information at this stage, Glass. Perhaps best to save it for the magistrate, eh? Boris Kranash says. No, I have plenty to hide and keep many secrets for the sake of Nim. But my name is not one of them. Amend it to Professor Tanya Viason. Thank you ever so much for watching. A little behind the scenes here, the tools in Midnight Muscadines are great for providing inspiration, but also one good thing about a solo game is that whenever you're stuck, you can pause and sleep on it, or even ask for help. And in this case, I paused when Titch was heading to the faculty corridor, really struggling with where to go next. I knew I wanted to introduce Glass's shocking secret, but had no idea what it was yet, so I asked my amazing partner, who had an incredible idea that really got me excited to go back and play. I'm sure you'll listen at some point, so thank you. I do want to quickly mention something that happened after I recorded the audio for last episode, which is that Pandion Games has very, very kindly sponsored this series with no strings or obligations at all, so a huge thank you to Andy for that. And a massive thank you, of course, to this month's Ko-fi supporters. The naturally lower viewing numbers for actual plays means you've directly helped me to pay it forward to folks like Emily Entner, who designed some of the graphical assets I used in the overlay that people have commented lots on, and Scott Buckley, who composed and produced all the music that adds so much to this series. If you feel able to support this series, please head over to ko-fi.com/cozyrpgreviews. I'm really excited for the next session. I actually don't know what happens yet, but I'm guessing it'll involve our new rival, Syris LaGarde, who I very much enjoyed writing immediately after the prompt said to creator. Review week next week though, so until next time, happy adventures.